What's up, everybody? Cinephile Mike here, and we are in season 4 of awards season reviews, counting down to the 98th Academy Awards with 98 reviews in 98 days. Quick reminder before we, fitting for this film, dive in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single review coming your way. We are in our 8th theme week. It is Indie Week, the week dedicated to those films running for Independent Spirit Awards and possibly a few others. And, it gives you a little bit of a break. If you're looking for something away from the bigger Oscar fare, maybe you find something here this week that you might have missed. Today, I am looking at IFC's The Plague. Written and directed by Charlie Polinger, the film premiered at Cannes last May before being released in theaters on Christmas Eve of last year. A very interesting day to release a film like this. So we're set in the summer of 2003. The Plague follows Ben, played by Everett Blunk, a quiet and anxious middle schooler attending an all-boys water polo camp led by the interestingly named Daddy Wags, played by Joel Egerton. Desperate to fit in, Ben gravitates toward Jake, played by Kyle Martin, the camp's very, confident, alpha and center of a very small but influential circle. On the fringes of the camp life is Eli, played by Kenny Rasmussen, a quirky kid with a skin condition that causes his peers to state that he has the plague. And while Jake and his friends openly mock and exclude Eli, Ben initially goes along feeling, that desperate need to fit in, even though there's some guilt coming with these actions. Now, as the days pass, Ben grows increasingly conflicted. Jake's casual cruelty becomes harder to stomach, and Ben finds himself kind of drawn toward Eli in some quieter, more private moments where Eli's more, ignorance of the behaviors against him contrasts very sharply with Ben's constant self-monitoring. So there's something that draws him there, and this fragile shift, though, doesn't go unnoticed. Then when a rumor spreads that Ben has caught the plague from Eli, the group very quickly turns on him. Ben is suddenly isolated, ridiculed, and treated as contagious, mirroring the very behavior he once engaged with. And as his stress intensifies, his sense of control begins to slip, both socially and physically, leaving him unsure of who he is supposed to be. The camp environment becomes increasingly hostile as tensions escalate between Ben, Jake, and this pushes some people towards rather extreme emotional circumstances. And as the summer reaches its breaking point, conflicts emerge, and what begins as a familiar coming-of-age story experience slowly, it transforms into something much darker, capturing a moment where, adolescence, insecurity, and cruelty just all collide together, leaving these boys to reckon with what kind of people do they want to be. What immediately stands out in The Plague is how effectively it taps into that familiar, almost primal dynamic, right? It says it in the poster. There's inevitable comparisons to Lord of the Flies. This film is about, social hierarchy, how it forms in real time, about how quickly rules are made, enforced, and weaponized by kids who barely understand the power that they have. Everett Blunk carries an enormous amount of emotional weight as Ben, a character that many viewers may instantly recognize in themselves, and not just gender specific, but it's the kid who wants to be kind, wants to belong, and doesn't yet know how to do both of these things at the same time. Blunk's performance, it's internal and deeply sympathetic, capturing the constant calculation and fear that define adolescence in these environments. Kenny Rasmussen's Eli is equally essential to the film's impact. Rather than playing him as a one-note outcast, Rasmussen makes some really interesting empathetic choices that give Eli agency and unpredictability. He isn't simply a victim. He exists on his wavelength and, is indifferent to acceptance, yet he's wounded by the rejection in ways that he can't always articulate in a healthy manner. Egerton's turn as Daddy Wags adds another compelling layer. In a film season where he's already made a strong impression elsewhere with Train Dreams, Egerton presents the coach as a mix of authority figure and emotional safety net, that kind of adult that boys are taught to trust, even when that trust may be insufficient. Like some of the film's most uncomfortable moments take place in settings where adult eyes sometimes don't make it to. On a technical level, the film does some really strong work to reinforce this emotional tension. Johan Lennox's score is haunting and ever-present, often functioning as almost like an internal voice for Ben as the pressure builds. Stephen Brecken's cinematography leans heavily into close-ups, allowing the young cast to express the overwhelming emotions that define this age. It's fear, it's shame, it's confusion, it's anger, often doing it without dialogue. And while the film makes some extreme turns in the final act that might challenge certain viewers, those choices don't undercut the central through line. And The Plague ultimately becomes a really sharp, unsettling portrait of teenage boyhood that shows how, exclusion and insecurity and unchecked power can potentially develop into something deeply damaging. So now let me talk a little bit about the box office and the awards. The film is currently posting a domestic take of $685,153, which makes up its worldwide take, as there were no international releases yet. Critically, the film is one of the most divided we've seen this season, I believe, with 98 critical reviews posting it with a 97% tomato meter, and over 50 audience reviewers giving it a popcorn meter of 66%. Award season-wise, the film is currently nominated for 3 Independent Spirit Awards: Best Feature, Best Lead Performance for Blanc, and Best Breakthrough Performance for Martin. It was a Golden Camera and Un Certain Regard nominee at Cannes. Blanc was nominated for Best Young Actor or Actress at the Critics' Choice Awards. And in addition to the Spirit Awards that it's still running for, it is up for a Spotlight Award by the American Society of Cinematographers. And one other Guild Award, Polinger is nominated for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in First-Time Theatrical Feature Films by the Directors Guild of America. All of this in addition to recognition by several other critic circles and film festivals. So where do I land on this one? This film is an uncomfortable but powerful 4-star watch. If you would like to see this one, there's a few sparse screenings I can see online. However, it is slotted for digital rental and purchase on most platforms this coming Tuesday, February 3rd. So if you can't see it in theaters, it's just around the corner. All right. Thank you all for joining me for episode 54 of Award Season Reviews Season 4. We have 44 days left. Stay with me. Please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, drop your thoughts in the comments. You can follow me everywhere on social platforms, on Letterboxd, and of course, head over to my website, cinephilemike.com, for even more reviews and movie goodies. I'll be back tomorrow with the next review, but until then, this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.